Hey there, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. So happy that you're here. We are really excited to be talking about this week's chapter. I am with Alan Fessenden, Megan Vasilis, and this week's guest host, Sergio Giovanni. I'm super excited to welcome you. I'm thrilled for a number of different reasons, in part because we were just talking about this before we started recording, and it was that no one's ever really done this before. No one has podcasted in group format this entire book. And it's been seminal for so many people, and so many people have wanted to do the book, that it's really exciting for all of us to be doing something no one's ever done so that we can hopefully help you unlock and unleash your inner creative genius as well. So here I am, as I said, with Alan, Megan, and Sergio. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks, Isolde.
Hey, Isolde.
Hey, everyone.
So here's the thing. First of all, I'm super excited once again because I love, as you know, to talk. Can you tell I used to have a public speaking phobia? Ha ha ha. But I am not the host this week. This week, Sergio has graciously agreed to host the podcast and to lead the discussion, to facilitate the discussion on this week's chapter, which is Recovering a Sense of Connection. And without further ado, I give you Sergio Giovanni.
Thank you so much, Isolde. Thank you to the crew for allowing me the opportunity to host this week's episode. And thank you, listener, for joining us tonight. And yeah, as Isolde said earlier, this week is week number 7 of The Artist Way, and we're going to be talking about recovering a sense of connection. But before we go into that, I would love to ask everyone how their weeks were. And I wanted to know if you did your morning pages. And more so, I want to know how you feel about your morning pages. We're halfway through the process, or the course, if you will. So I wanted to know if your morning pages has affected you as an artist, or even general life. And I would like to ask the same of your artist date, if that's okay for you to share. Isolde, would you love to start us off?
I would love to start us off. Thank you, Sergio. So my morning pages I've been doing since 1997, so some of the stuff has not changed very much. But one of the things that has happened over the last few weeks is that a lot of the things that I'd been sort of noodling around and not really having answers for have shown up as answers. Like, I have this project that I've been doing called Overheard, because I have this ridiculous memory that allows me to remember entire conversations from 30 years ago, and I'm also a shameless eavesdropper. So I have looked and looked and looked and thought about what I should do with it. And over the last couple of weeks in my morning pages, I went, wait, why is this not a play? This should be a play. And so this last week and a half, I've started writing the play, and it's taken over my brain. So there are those kinds of things. Plus, I realized from my website, as in my coaching and professional speaking life, I realized that I needed to do things to my website to make it more clear about what it is I'm trying to achieve and how I'm trying to help. And so I've been using my morning pages to sort of flesh that out. And so it's helping me in my sort of professional artistic life as an artist, but also my professional artistic life as a coach and as a professional speaker. And then last, one of the things that's happened is I'm doing a lot of podcasts as a guest right now. So I was just a guest on a podcast talking about future. Like, Isolde, you're a futurist. Let's see what you think about where the space race is going. And okay, let's do that. So some of that preparation is happening from there through that. And the same thing is happening with my Mindful Creative book. So there's a lot of stuff that's coming out in my morning pages that I'm sort of taking piecemeal and applying it to all of the different projects that I'm working on. As far as the artist date, my artist date was a little bit weird this time, in that it's not weird. Okay, it's not weird. It's just,
Weird can be cool.
Yeah, no. It's. I'm realizing that I did this a few weeks ago too. I went wandering the streets of New York. That was my artist date. I walked essentially from Times Square down to Union Square, and just looked at the architecture, chatted with people as they were walking by, looked in at the shops and saw all of the there's so many cool furniture shops and lamp and lighting shops. So I was just looking in shop windows, pressing my nose against the windows and seeing all of the different ideas that I now have. And one of the things that I realized, and this is a huge realization for me. My whole life, I have loved Art Nouveau. I love Art Nouveau. I love Art Nouveau. And I recently realized that I actually love Art Deco, which I used to poo-poo. So walking through this art estate and seeing all of the really cool deco buildings and deco, pieces of furniture and lighting fixtures and all that, I went, wow, I actually like this. No, wait, I love this. And it was a huge revelation for me because I'd always been firmly in the Impressionist, Art Nouveau, art sort of flower and nature stuff. But I realized that clean lines really matter to me. And that was a huge realization just this week that I had during my art estate. So there you go. It's been a seminal week for me, which considering I've been doing this since 1997, was huge. Megan, how about you? What were your thoughts about morning pages and how have they affected and impacted your life as well as your art estate?
Well, last week, I only did them 4.5 days. And this week I managed to do it 6.5 days. And the difference between this week and last week was tremendous for me. It really just underscored how much the morning pages have really come to mean to me as a daily practice, not both for artistic reasons and just as mental health, self-care. I mean, just having this process in my life where every morning I sit down and the first thing I do is I write those pages. I felt very different on the days that I managed to do it, in contrast to the days that I didn't last week. So that was one thing I noticed. And for my art estate, this week, I've still been really uncomfortable going to a lot of places that aren't super necessary just because of the pandemic. But this year, I finally decided this week, I find time just is all collapsing into a vortex. Anyway, this week, I decided that I was going to take myself to a bookstore and actually browse around and get myself a coffee, kind of the way I used to. This is one of my favorite, solo date things that I would do even before the pandemic. And I haven't really done it at all since really March of 2020. And when I did that, it was just so healing in a way I can't even describe, just getting to be alone in this space, breathing in the smell of all the books and just walking around, looking at things, getting to spend as long as I wanted there, not having anyone be like, oh, when are we leaving? Why are you going over into that section? Just having total freedom in a bookstore was just a totally magical experience. And
that's awesome.
So yeah, that was my week. It was pretty great. I was very happy to get to experience that again.
Amazing.
That's really great to hear. Alan, how about you?
So regarding the morning pages, yes, I've done them. I've been thinking about how I do them, and I think I get to them when I get to them, and sometimes it's after I walk Thea and after I eat or have a coffee. There's different preambles. If I'm not talking about my dog once a podcast, does she even exist? I don't know.
Exactly.
But they're definitely bringing ideas to me. The other day I wrote something. I was like, I think I need to make a club. And I've never wanted to start a club, and I'm not sure that I do now, but I had this great idea. I was like, oh, this would be a great club name. And if you're like a club starter, the name of the club would be Fairy Dust. So you're welcome. I was like, I just need a place that's really cool and chill and inviting and welcoming to everybody. But I don't know what I would do with the club. So I don't. So you have to forgive me. I'm very tired. I have not had a lot of work, or I haven't been working all the time, and then so I get a lot of time off. And now today was just a busy day. So and now this whole week I'm just stressed out about it because I was like, please send me money, universe. And universe is like, all at once. It's like,
Oh no.
yeah, please, all at once. I guess I'll work for it. So, in fact, I was offered, a non-disclosed sum of money to keep working tonight, and I was like, no, I have a thing to do. I have to go do my commitment to you guys, and it's the most
Yay.
important thing I'm doing right now because
We appreciate you.
I find it so helpful to me, and this is quality time, and so I don't want to sell it. So for not to sell it, to not do it.
That's awesome,
or-
by the way,
yeah.
that you're investing in your own artistic creative journey, but also being here with us. So thank you.
Absolutely, it's for you and it's for me, and I was just like, what good am I going to be? I wouldn't even be useful to this guy, so I gotta go try to be useful to you guys. And I couldn't stay any longer. I stayed as long as I could. But I am meandering now. The artist date, the artist date. I'll skip to the artist date. That's what my mouth wants to talk about. So I waited too long to go see the Dewar exhibit. Forgive me. And it was at Brooklyn Museum. I wanted to go see it, and I had heard it was good, and I was like, let me go see these dresses. And I'm not a huge fashion person. Well, let's just see. I work in fashion. I have worked in fashion, but to me, this is not something I would have normally been like, yeah, I want to do it. But lately, I was like, oh, I would absolutely go see that. I want to see these dresses and get more insight into this world, and I kind of like as older, you're saying about like just learning what new things that you like. I'm like, oh, what is it about fashion that I'm drawn to? What is it that fashion does, and what is that communication with the world? So I thought, oh, I'll go see that, and I went on Sunday morning. It was the last day of the exhibit, and I thought, they said that they give out tickets the day of. There's like, they were sold out online, but there's like always available tickets the day of. And I was like, let me go see if I can get to this. And I was a huge line when I got there, and there was like 2 crazy lines. Nobody knew where anyone was going, and I was like, this is not look hopeful. And then I was just like, well, I'll wait in line and I'll do it. And I created a backup plan while I was waiting in line. But while I was in line, I was like, I hate lines usually, and I never wait online. But this is kind of like a cool experience to just be like waiting for something and not having to do anything else. And just with this hope of like going to see some art. And you're with a bunch of people, and you can either like tune into them or tune them out. It's, it's their choice, it's your choice. And you have this sort of opportunity to be in a space where a bunch of other people are also congregating that kind of want to do the same thing. So you have that in common with them, but also they're just doing their own thing, and you can just do your own thing. And it was really beautiful. And then at some point, the guy came out and said, there's no more tickets to Dewar. So if you're here for Dewar, that's it. And I was like, damn. And I was like, I guess I could go see Warhol again, or just go through the museum. But I had already made a backup plan, and that was to go to a comic book store. And so I thought you guys would like that. So I did a big build up because I know Megan and Sergio are comic book enthusiasts. And I went to Anyone Comics. I think it's called Anyone Comics in Brooklyn. It's like a tiny little hole in the wall place. I walked in, and there was a woman behind the counter eating a bagel, and she apologized to me. And I was like, no worries, eat your bagel. She was sitting next to another woman, and I just looked around. It's like maybe, I don't know, 10 feet, 20 feet wide. So not a huge space.
Intimate.
Very intimate. Yeah. And there was like a few people gathered in the very few pockets of the corners that there were in that store. There were just people gathered and stuff. And I was like so intimidated. I felt like such a like out of place. I was like, I don't know what I like. I don't know what to look at, and I haven't bought comics in absolutely years. I don't know who's doing stuff. I just felt just so disconnected and intimidated. And I was like, you know what? I'll do the thing I do at a restaurant. I'll just ask somebody else's opinion. And so I saw this guy. He was like walking around the store, and it seemed like he was working. So I was like, are you working here? He's like, yeah. I was like, cool. I saw you paying attention to the comic books, and he was like, yeah. And then his name was Thad, and he was very sweet, and I think his name is Thad. It's a longer name, but he told me I could just call him Thad, and I hope that I remembered it correctly. But he was very nice, very sweet, and we were both wearing masks, so not a lot of facial, communications.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to explain to him, like, I liked comic books. I liked those action heroes and stuff like that, but I was also like looking for some new entryway, and he pointed out a few things. I got a new Batman that's like the second issue of a new storyline, and I haven't actually read that yet. And I got this, he suggested this comic book Bitter Root, which is about takes place in Harlem. It's like a steampunk type.
It's a great comic.
You read it? Yeah, it was great.
I love Bitter Root. It's so good.
Yeah, Bitter Root's a good series.
Oh, cool. I'm looking forward to more of it. It was so interesting. And then I have Stray Dogs was the other one I bought.
Yes.
Which I haven't read. But I was like, okay. I was like, I bought some stuff. I also saw that they had Catan there, and I was like, this is a game that I play all the time on my freaking iPad. That is another, like, I waste time doing it, but I always have fun. And I used to play it all the time, but I was like, I need to get myself another set and play with people again, because it's been a long time. But that's another story. So then I was like, okay, well, I left, I bought my books, and I was like, oh, is that enough for an artist date? And so I was like, let me go home. Or I went to look for a coffee shop around there. There's nothing. So I rode my bike home, and I didn't go all the way home. I stopped at the coffee shop nearby, and I sat and I read my comic book. I read Bitter Root from front to back, except I got to read some of the notes but there's a lot of good information in there. And it just took me on a little journey, and I was like, cool, this is so fun. And it was like, yeah, it is an escape. And it was really like their style of writing was like unfamiliar. Like, it just throws you into the middle of it unless there's some setup that I missed. But I was just like, whoa, this is really it just jumps, and you just have to like fill in those gaps for yourself a lot of times. And I was just like, this is cool. This is a cool form of storytelling, and I like that I can pick up on the story without having it spoon fed to me almost, and without seeing every action shot like you do in some comics. They weren't like wasting pages and pages just to be like every punch. You're just like, whoa, I guess I just did a melee because everything's done now. But I really had a great time. I loved it, and I'm looking forward to exploring that world a little more. And I think, as far as your question about how it's affected my life, it's just like pushing me to do things that I have been reticent to do, especially since the pandemic has made me sort of a shut-in, and I wasn't always a shut-in, and I'm sort of like breaking out of that pattern now. So I hope I haven't put anyone to sleep with my comic book story, but that's me. Sergio, how is your morning pages? How is your artist date, and how are they affecting your life, if so? And if not, are you mad about it? What's going on?
No, I'm not mad. Before I go into that, I would love to just comment on a few of the things I've heard. Alan, that's so amazing that you went to a comic book store. It's like you knew I would be hosting this week's episode.
I did. Oh, did I cut you off?
Uh-oh.
Oh, no. Sergio?
Dun. Well, it looks like Sergio may have frozen. So let us continue while Sergio drops back off and comes back on, and we will. Sergio, if you hear this, go ahead and come on back when you're ready. You know this podcast is never edited, so I really, even when Al Petaway, who's a Grammy Award-winning guitarist, when his dog was in the studio with him when he was doing his interview with me, and the dog threw up, Al was like, "You're not going to put that in the episode, are you?" "Oh, yes, I am," and yes, it's there. So let us continue on. You know what's interesting to me about about this week is that some of this is connection with others, some of this is connection with yourself. And so let's chat about that if we would, right? For me,
Yeah.
some of what this is, some of what this chapter is that it is sort of realizing that we have to get past our censor. And I'm not gonna bring up God, but I am gonna talk about the fact that I feel like this is our subconscious, that is what we're tapping into. And so when you're looking at Alan and Megan, and obviously when Sergio comes back, we'll be chatting with him. When you're thinking about that connection, oh, and there's Sergio. Ha ha ha! Look at that.
Oh, I apologize.
That is okay. So what we were starting to talk about, and I would love to chat about it after, was the notion of making that connection with your subconscious in order to seek and find inspiration. But please, Sergio, go ahead and get back to what you were saying, which was all about being super pumped that Alan had gone to a comic book store for his artist date.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, I was just really glad to hear that he was able to do that. And again, I don't
Yeah.
know if this cut off, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alan.
Oh, I was just gonna say it did give me a little bit of joy knowing that you and Megan would particularly like that. I don't know. I was like, oh, Megan and Sergio like this, and I knew you was specifically, so it made me more eager to go do it. Yeah.
Oh,
That's really
we
sweet.
welcome you into our comic book fold, Alan.
Thank you.
Yes, that's really sweet, and I really appreciate that. That warms my heart. And I said this before. I don't know if I cut off, but it's almost like you knew I was hosting this week's episode with that Plan B for the artist date. I really hope you enjoy it. Stray Dogs is amazing. Batman.
I'm looking
is
forward
usually-
to it. Yeah.
Batman is usually a fun time as well. And yeah, I really like that. Speaking of joining a comic book club, I like that you thought of this other club that you wanted to start, the Fairy Dust Club, and maybe it can be like an artist collective with like open mic nights and kind of just sharing work and maybe collaborating on things. That would be awesome. I would be
Oh.
super interested in that. And thank you again for coming tonight and turning down the extra cash at work, not selling it out,
course.
as you said. That's very punk rock. I love that.
Oh, thanks. John
Megan,
Tapper would yell
earlier-
at me. Forget I said
John
anything.
Tapper.
Sorry, forget it. Abandoned ship.
Forgotten. Shout out Thad too, who helped you at the comic shop.
Yes, thank you, Thad.
Megan, earlier, you were talking about your morning pages and how they were providing self-care. And I just really wanted to say that I'm really happy to hear that. And I'm also a big fan of bookstores. So that sounds like a really awesome artist date. And it also sounds to me like the artist date is providing self-care as well. So that's really great to hear.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Isolde, I love that decades later, the morning pages and these artist dates are still affecting you so much, and that you're able to come up with these new ideas or reinvest in ideas that you've had in the past, and like revamping the web page or working on the play. And I also love that it gave you your artist date that is a new appreciation for Art Deco as you were exploring the city. That's really awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was awesome. And per your comment of Fairy Dust, the artist collective, back at Maryland, or in Maryland, I used to host a weekly salon that was very much people presenting their art that they were working on and getting and receiving feedback. And it could be any kind of art, dance, music, writing, whatever, didn't matter. And so, Alan, if you decide you want to start that up, count me in as a member. I will totally love to be a part of something like that. So there you go. Sorry,
Nice.
Sergio, keep going.
No, of course, yes. I assume that we would all be joining the collective if that was a thing, even helping with it, right? Supporting and all that.
For
fun stuff.
sure.
Yes, absolutely.
So before we move on, I'm gonna talk real quick about my morning pages and artist date. I did 6 pages this week,
Yes.
which although I didn't do 7, I still feel good about. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate you.
Mhm.
And as much as that might have sounded like I was complaining in the past about morning pages, I do feel compelled to do them. And I honestly regret it when I don't get to do it. With that being said, I'm not sure if it's really changed too much of or at least dramatically, as far as my creative efforts. And my artist date, I went to the local library, which was also a part of task 3, where she asked you to go to a sacred place. Um, and it was awesome. I love going to libraries. I haven't been to one in forever, and it felt serene and exciting all at once, which is something I love about that kind of space. And yeah, I'm definitely thinking about hitting the New York Public Library next time, like Isolde
Yay.
has done a few times, because that's definitely one of my favorite spots. So yeah, that was my artist date, my morning pages. And the thing about artist dates affecting my life, I do feel like I feel like artist dates was something I was already doing. So it doesn't feel that different, but maybe I should try doing things that I don't usually do, or trying new things out. So I'm going to take that into account and try and be mindful of that with the rest of this process. Before we move on, Isolde, you had a question before that you the crew started talking about.
Well, we hadn't actually started talking about it, but sort of starting to explore the notion of where inspiration comes from, where that sense of connection comes from. And I was saying that for me, that it's your subconscious, that, paying attention and imagining and sort of knowing or learning or hearing that inspiration comes from your subconscious rather than your conscious. So all the stuff your conscious mind takes in, it sort of sends back to your subconscious, and then the stuff that comes up as inspiration, to me, it's I think I've mentioned, is the librarian who lives in your head, Edna Mode. She lives in my head, and whenever I need information, whenever I need ideas, whenever I don't know what the next step is, I send it back to her, and up bubbles the inspiration or the answer or the idea or whatever just a little while later. And to me, that's my subconscious. So what I was positing and what I was raising up with the rest of the group was, where do you believe that sense of inspiration, that sense of connection actually comes from? That's what what I had been starting to discuss, but we can totally talk about it talk about it in some other order.
Well, if I can jump in here, if that's okay, Sergio.
Of course, yeah.
But
please do.
No, because you just reminded me. I was thinking about the morning pages and how I relate to them. And recently, I've been thinking, and this is what I wanted to say earlier, but I forgot that I let's see if I don't forget now. I think I've been starting to think about it as really like how I listen to myself and how I sort of converse with myself and open up a channel to really check in with myself, which is not something I've always done, and something I've probably neglected, and it's just sort of like making me think a little bit about how I think and what I think. So it's helpful to check in like where my mind goes and what it wants and what it's not satisfied with, I guess, or whatever. And it's helpful to just sort of like feel like my mind, the clarity of my mind coming back and feeling like I'm more connected to myself. And I think that's what you're sort of talking about, Isolde. And you're sort of, and like that's where like my inspiration is coming from. Yeah, like checking in with what I want to be doing, or like thinking that I can do things that may seem dumb or ludicrous, or you guys have already blown out an idea that I thought was like ridiculous, and I only dropped it so I could leave it. And you guys are like, here it is again. And I was like, okay, fairy dust. You gotcha.
Okay.
We're there for you. This will be awesome.
But yeah.
Exciting. All right. But that's my take
amazing
on it. Thank you.
That's really great. I'm really happy to hear that the morning pages have had such a large effect. And as far as connection, I feel like it does come from the subconscious. And also from the things I'm influenced by. So the music I listen to, the films I watch, the podcasts I listen to, the people I do podcasts with, they all influence, I think, my art, and I feel connected to all of that in a way. And I feel like I'm more connected to it when I can create art myself, if that makes sense. How about you, Megan?
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, and this chapter really kind of underscored that to me in a really interesting way. I think that it's always been really easy for me to kind of attribute that sense of inspiration and even creative output to I guess only my own subconscious. And I think to a degree that is where I see it coming from. But all the things in my subconscious have to come from somewhere. And I think what the artist dates have done is sort of legitimize isn't the right word, but it's sort of like made that process of bringing in other influences, other ideas, bringing that stuff into my subconscious work and kind of percolate and then eventually become art, made that more of a process. And that's why I think that the artist dates, especially, I mean, also morning pages, but for me, the artist dates have been so important in terms of just making sure that I actually do them every week when I say I'm going to, because when I do, I feel both like I've given my brain kind of a break, and also that I have more inspiration in the bank. You know, I have more outside influences that I've let myself experience, more time that I've let myself spend outside of my routines. I think I'm definitely someone who tends to get really I mean, I can't function if my to-do list gets disrupted. You know, I have to function on like a really specific like order of activities throughout the day. So for me, an opportunity to kind of step outside of that in a controlled way that isn't going to disrupt all of my goals and plans, that's really really useful to me. So that's something huge that I think I've been getting that out of it all along, but I could just kind of had that realization this week while I was reading this chapter.
Yeah, that sounds monumental, and I understand that routine can be comfortable, right? But I'm glad that you're allowing yourself to break from routine and try these new things. That's really great, Megan. Okay, so moving on. Is that all right if we move on?
Of course.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So, as we started talking about, this week is all about recovering a sense of connection, which I feel like we establish is very important. And it's funny, I was really nervous, still nervous about hosting this week's episode, but the crew, being the awesome supporters that they are, explained to me that I would do a great job because I was a great listener. So it's only fitting that the first part of this week's chapter has to do with just that. So that's what I'd like to talk about first, is listening. I think listening, and I mean really listening, is very important, vital even. In the book, Julia, or Miss Cameron rather, equates listening to being engaged in your art. Instead of thinking something up, we should be getting something down. Instead of reaching for inventions, we should be in the moment, engaged in listening. She uses an expression, the brush takes the next stroke, in regards to the painter who begins with a plan, but soon surrenders to the painting's own plans. She even says that we are more a conduit than the creator. Excuse me, we are more a conduit than the creator of what we express. So what I want to know is what you guys, what the crew thinks of all of this. She compares this to listening. She compares listening to tapping into our creative wells, and also to radio waves and tuning into the right frequency. How do you all feel about listening in regards to where and how your art is conceived, or created rather? Megan, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, definitely. I felt so called out by this chapter. Really, like as the resident perfectionist of the crew, I felt like she was writing this section directly to me specifically, like how all the stuff she said about how this is all an excuse to not actually get it down and to not take responsibility for making it happen and to be so in your head about it. That's been like the story of my creative life. And I do think that over these past few weeks that we've been working through it, I have started to I wouldn't say I'm past that, because it's obviously a really huge issue that I'm working through now, but I have started to become more aware of it. And that awareness has let me really, really pay attention when I'm writing. Like right now I'm rough drafting a novel, and I'm noticing now every time I stop writing, what is going through my head. And it's always something like, well, this isn't good enough. This is just going to be crap I'm going to have to throw out later. And I mean, that's the process. It's literally the process of writing that I'm resisting. And when I can just let myself tune into the conduit, I guess, the whatever is coming from my subconscious, my rough draft is actually cleaner, like when I'm not constantly fighting against my own resistance, the natural voice that comes out of me is better. It doesn't sound like I dragged it out of my brain like a root canal. It feels more natural. I mean, I wouldn't say that my rough draft is, it's not great. Obviously it's not something that I would present as a finished draft, but it feels more natural. It feels like editable and fixable in a way that not a lot of my rough drafts have always felt in the past. I've always felt like I needed to spend more time fixing it, or that the story was just fundamentally broken. It's really just a total realignment. I think that really is part of this process. And that's been really huge for me this week. How about you, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt I was gonna say seen or attacked by this chapter with her, that feeling of like destroying something before you even make it, and I like going over line by line just to get it worse than it was before. And I was like, but I was like, it was helpful to me. It's kind of freeing, and I love the idea of listening to the work, and that really resonated with me because, again, when we used to improvise, you have to like be there in the moment and responding to what's happening. You can't really plan too much, and if you do, it ends up falling flat. And I know when I write, it's so frustrating because you come to the page with a certain idea of what you're going to write, and then what starts coming out is like not that, or it's like not quite what you were envisioning. And it's like, screw this. I might as well not write if I can't write the things but then when you let yourself write what's coming out, it's like, oh, okay, this is what I need to write right now. And this is flowing. So why am I fighting what is happening so I can lament what isn't happening right in this moment? And it's like, this is still working towards the same goal, but you're just letting that take shape. And it was like kind of helpful for me because I thought I was almost done with my pilot, and then I was like looked up how long a pilot should be, and they want like 20 more pages, and I was like, damn. But also I was like, I'll just write more stuff than I need, because trimming is easier than like creating. Cutting back is easier, but it's hard to be like, I'm super precious about things I write and things I create. It's like, whoo, I didn't even know that. I am though. I get really attached to how I envision it and how I see it going, and so it's hard to let it go when I feel like I'm not in control or creating that thing that I really wanted. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully it does. And yeah, what you're saying, Megan, makes total sense to me. Just that freedom to let yourself write without trying to drive it too much. But speaking of drivers, Isolde, how do you feel about this?
I appreciate everything you all are saying, and to me, this part of the chapter, in my book Speak From Within, I devote a healthy amount of it to listening, because we spend a lot of our time, quote, listening, unquote, just waiting to respond. We're just like, okay, when's it going to be my turn? And so if I really put myself into an attitude of receiving, when someone is communicating with me, it changes the entire environment. It changes the entire flavor of our interaction. So when I'm looking to receive what I'm gonna write next, or what I'm gonna sing next, or what I'm gonna create next, or whatever, it's about being mindful to me. It's about sort of being in that place of being receptive. So much of this is, it's how I did Overheard, right? Being receptive to the things going on around me, putting away my phone and just watching people. All of that informs and inspires me directly with Overheard, but also I've put things that I've seen and witnessed in my books, right? So that's part of it. But the other part, and this is sort of piggybacking a little bit on what Megan said, I have this plan for every book that I write. And within the first few pages, the plan kind of goes out the window because the characters start taking on lives of their own. And I realize that things are going to be very different than what I thought they were going to be. My job at some point becomes to listen to what the characters are trying to tell me and to see whether or not I am being true and they are being true to who they are. Right? Because some of this is, a lot of it is, it's about authenticity. Am I being authentic to who I'm creating? If I am, great. If I'm not, I need to go back to the drawing board. So I check in with myself whenever I'm doing anything like this and saying, am I listening well? Am I paying enough attention? Am I in a receptive, mindful place so that I can be aware when some of this stuff happens? And the last thing is, I run these workshops called Tell Your Story Better, teaching people how to tell stories, how to communicate, how to present in interviews, meetings, whatever. And a healthy chunk of what we talk about in these workshops is listening skills, because you don't know nearly as much about what to say until you know who your audience is, until you know who the people are, until you know what is actually happening. And you don't learn that by being the one to speak. You learn that by asking questions and really listening to the answers. So that is a lot of what I do. And then try and reflect back to who I heard, what I heard. And Sergio, you are just the reigning monarch of this, because you are so very good at reflective listening and being able to take in what you've heard, what you've listened to, and really reflect it back to people. But having said that, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the very question that you asked.
Thank you so much, Isolde, for saying that. And I really love the importance that everyone is putting on listening. And I love, Isolde, that you said earlier that too many people are waiting to respond instead of actually listening. And that's very true. It's something I really, that frustrates me, when you're talking to someone and you start to bring up a story or an anecdote or whatever, and before you can even finish, they kind of make it about themselves. I feel like that's such a rude thing to do. So I try my best not to ever do that. But thank you. And Alan, I can definitely see how the improv will sharpen those listening skills, right? All the reacting that you have to do and all the listening that's involved with that. And I also wanted to say that I can understand your attachment to your art, right? Because it's a part of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it sounds like you're aware of that. And I think Megan was talking about having this sense of awareness and how powerful that can be. And that she's now able to be a little more lax, if you will, with her rough drafts. Which is really great. I'm happy to hear that, because I know how difficult that can be.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So as far as how I feel about this, when it comes to listening, right? Listening to the subconscious, in creative regard, I feel like this reminds me of a muse. The idea of it, this notion. And with that being said, I do feel like I've had moments where I've created something like a song or, a poem or something like that, that just came out of nowhere, that I'm not really sure, if I had the idea for it. And I feel like that's always a great thing, but it hasn't always been the case. There have been times where I've, thought about what I was creating, or it was premeditated, something that gestated in my head for a while before I actually started to work on it. And then I can also relate with when you begin to work on something, how difficult that can be to finish said project without going over and trying to do rewrites or edits or changing the lyrics of a song and what have you. And I feel like that's a perfect segue for the next topic I wanted to talk about, which is the next thing in the book that Ms. Cameron talks about, and it's perfectionism and risk. So Ms. Cameron says that perfectionism is a refusal to let yourself move ahead, a loop, an obsessive, debilitating closed system that causes you to get stuck in the details and lose sight of the whole. She conveys that this hinders our creative freedom and imagination, and even quotes the great Miles Davis with, "Do not fear mistakes, there are none," which I can't help but think of another quote by another legend, which goes, "Do or do not, there is no try." She goes on to say that because of this, we are less inclined to take risk. We don't want to look like an idiot, and because of our obsession with perfection, we don't compare our student films to George Lucas's student films. Instead, we compare them to Star Wars. She goes on to say that when taking risks, we meet and complete challenges, which can create this self-empowerment that will have a ripple effect in your other activities and efforts. So what I wanted to ask was how you felt about this section. Can you relate? I feel like Megan can a little bit. Do you feel you're a perfectionist? And does that stop you from taking risk? Alan, would you mind starting us off?
Yeah, I don't mind. I'll talk about it. I wouldn't go around saying, "Oh, I'm a perfectionist," but I do like things just so, apparently, and I think I'm starting to learn that. But I also have known that I'm a procrastinator, and I think that has a lot to do with me wanting to get it right the first time. I don't I want to nail it every time, and I want just to be loved for whatever I put out. And I did this chapter, and then so last night, as I do the night before our meetings, I tried to go through all the tasks, and I was looking at the mantra one, and I was like, well, I don't have watercolors. She says to make this mantra, and she says it's obvious I learned it very well. Treating myself like a precious object will make me strong. Treating myself like a precious object will make me strong. This is a mantra she says for us to adapt. And then she says, paint it and put it somewhere so you can remember it. And so I was like, well, let me do some color pencils. And I was like, I don't know I'm just going to write it. I don't have good handwriting. I'm just going to have fun with it. And sometimes I just do this, and I really like what I create, and it's just silly. And I'm just like, and I really listen to what I'm doing, and try to follow it along. And normally I produce something that's tolerable or I enjoy. And it's like, well, I don't normally color, so it's fine. And I just kept going over it with different colors, writing the thing and just shading and stuff like that. And I tried to write like in cursive, but I haven't written cursive in a while. So I had to fix the K. So I just put a big solid K on it. It is the ugliest thing I've ever done. And I was so disappointed at the end of it. And it's like, you know what,
I'm sure
Alan?
it's beautiful.
I will fight you on that. No, listen, I love praise of all sorts, false and positive. But this is
it's subjective. I can like it.
Well, okay, so halfway through it, I realized that I had written special over and over, and it was precious. So then I wrote over that precious really large. If I treat myself like a precious over the special. So I had fun with it.
Do a Gollum voice.
My precious. I don't know.
Thank you. Yes.
My precious. But But yeah, it's in my cabinet right now. But I was like, okay, but I was like relieved that I could just throw it away and make another one or do something better, and I wasn't attached to it. I was like, I don't have to love everything. I can make bad stuff, and I have done, and it's good to let it go. But I want to respond to something you said earlier, which is how a song comes to you or a poem, and you feel like, did I even do this? And there were moments when I was performing regularly where I would have such a great show that I felt guilty for enjoying it, because I just wanted to be like, did you guys see what happened? That was amazing. How did that happen? And I felt no real ownership over that moment. I just wanted to appreciate that moment. But it was hard to appreciate because I felt like I was just trying to seeking compliments. But I just wanted to be like, guys, it's just, and sometimes people got that, I think, because it is this, it can be like a little magical art form sometimes, and people get it. But I also always felt guilty trying to appreciate this thing that I felt like I was lucky to have been a part of, and not that I held ownership over in that way. I don't know if that makes sense. But let's go to who needs to talk. Megan?
Sure, I can go.
You need to talk?
So, yes. So that quote of Julia Cameron's, where she says, treating yourself like a precious object. Oh gosh,
That's right. It's precious.
I'm suddenly blanking on it. Yeah.
Will make me strong.
Will make me stronger. That was like an earth-shattering thing to read. Like, not that I've never heard anything like that before, but I think other perfectionists out there might relate to this. But like, for me, I come from both an immigrant family and from a family with a very strong, like, Puritan sense of work and work ethic. And the story is very much there. And I think both sides of my family, that if work isn't hard and painful, then it's not really work in some way. And that if work is painful in some way, then that's virtuous, and you're adding something to the world if you're toiling in some way. And so I think for me, as I was growing up, especially, that feeling really translated into this really kind of toxic idea that I had to punish myself almost, even with my creative work, if I wasn't measuring up to my own standards, or that I had to hold myself to these ridiculously high standards, or this ridiculously high standard of work. And I think it's really led to definitely situations where I've been really, really burned out in the past, in a lot of different ways. And kind of like the journey towards rewriting that story for me has been sort of learning to accept this idea that it doesn't have to be that way. There can be another story around all the work I'm doing, both creative work and other work. And so just the fact that she made that really a cornerstone point of this chapter was it was really powerful for me. And I didn't design it beautifully like Alan did, but I wrote it a bunch of times in my morning pages just to kind of get used to that feeling and take ownership over it. And I felt like that it was powerful for me, definitely. How about you, Isolde?
Wow. Okay. First of all, I just want to. Both my cats have managed to make it into the studio, so there's going to be cats jumping onto the computer, and anything might happen. So I'm just letting you know that. Okay. But then, Megan, specifically what you were saying. Yeah, I'm from an immigrant family too. I am an immigrant, and that entire, unless you are suffering, it's not really contributing, is just that much bullshit. Okay, got to put the explicit thing in, but it is something that's drummed into a lot of people, that notion of, unless you're suffering, it's not really work, and it can't possibly be good or good for you unless, that whole no pain, no gain thing. I'm a no pain, no pain person myself, but that's, that's just me. one of the things though that I think of when I think about all of this, first of all, when I originally read the book back in 97, I did create I changed the word precious because it was a little too Lord of the Rings. So I changed it to sacred. Treating myself like a sacred object will make me strong. And I had it all pretty with all the colors I love, you know, your sky blues and your vivid purples and fuchsia and magenta and hot pink and whatever. And so that was really cool. And I had it up on my wall for a long time. And then I realized I don't have as much of an issue with it anymore. So I took it down when we left Maryland and moved to New York City. I took it down and I never put it back up. Instead, I have something else up, and I'm going to want to quote it to you in a minute. But the thing that I wanted to sort of mention, that whole notion of perfectionism and like you said, Sergio, comparing, you compare George Lucas's, you compare your movies to Star Wars, not to his student projects. It's hard because his master's thesis was THX 1138, and that's a brilliant movie. So comparing yourself to Lucas as anything can be a challenge. But I think the point for me is not let me compare myself to Lucas or Sofia Coppola or whoever. I think the point for me is to really have commitment to my vision, right? So it's not about what did someone else do. I'm never going to be Jonathan Larson or Lin-Manuel Miranda or whoever. I'm never going to be them. And the thing is, they're never going to be me, right? So because no one can tell my story but me, no one has my experience. And I feel like this is a gong I've been banging for all of these weeks. I owe it to myself to tell the story that I want to tell in the best way I can tell it. So I understand procrastination. I get it. I also know that I feel keenly right now, because I've had many friends pass in just the last year. I keenly feel that there's not a moment to waste. I want to put out as much creative stuff as I possibly can. And the only way I can do that is to stay true to my vision of what I want to create. And if it's successful commercially, great. And if it's not, then I know I did it. I know I tried it. And so there's something very important about that to me that I'm very happy about. And that might not be where anybody else is. And if you're not there, that's totally cool. Again, we all have to remember that we have to be where we are. I say this to my coaching clients all the time. You know, being pissed that you haven't achieved something is like being 60 miles into a 100-mile trip and being mad at yourself that you haven't arrived yet. Well, you're on your way. You know, you've got 40 miles to go or whatever. You have to give yourself that credit that you're in process, and being pissed that you haven't gotten there yet logically doesn't make sense because you're in the middle. You know, so there's something of that. But I want to read this. This is the thing that I now have up on my wall, not the whole treating myself like a sacred object thing, but if it's okay with you all, I want to read this thing that I have.
Yeah, please.
Please.
Cool. It's on my desk, and I like it so much I laminated it. So here are the things. It's a few sentences. 1, are you doing your best right now? 2, focus on what matters. 3, make marvelous mistakes. 4, when you're done, be done. 5, tell yourself the truth! Exclamation point. 6, let go of regret.
I love that.
Thank you. I'm not done.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So number 6 is let go of regret. Number 7, shit happens. Control how you respond to it. 8, you are the boss of your life. And 9, be curious. So those are the sort of things that I live by. It's not so much treating myself in any one way. It's more, I'm the boss here. I am the boss of my life. And I have to control my responses, be curious, and be honest with myself. And if I am, and I keep pressing forward, I'm going to be where I'm supposed to be one way or the other. So that's my thought on it. Sergio, what about you? What are your thoughts on the very question that you asked?
That's awesome. I really love that list. And I'm going to have to ask if you can maybe send us that list. I wish I
Sure,
was
of
writing
course.
them down as you were saying them. But
No problem.
That's a great list. I'm a big fan of lists, and I would love to have that to read to myself. I also love that you don't compare yourself, and that you make it a point to commit to just being yourself.
Yeah,
That's,
everybody else is taken. So you might as well be yourself.
Definitely. Yes, exactly. And Megan, I'm sorry to hear about, how stressful that must have been, um, with your family, and how they, the kind of things that they, prioritize as far as work having to feel like work, right? I feel like it's the opposite now, though. When people usually think of a successful job, it's typically like work shouldn't feel like work. If you're working and it doesn't feel like that, then you're having a good time. Then that's amazing. Then you have a great job. Um, and I also wanted to say, Alan, I really appreciate the Gollum impression. It's really, really cool. And I know this is easier said than done, but do not feel guilty for your art and for performing well.
Oh, I didn't feel guilty. I just wanted to be able to appreciate it from the outside.
Yeah, well, I
Maybe I
appreciate.
did feel guilty. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you mentioned feeling guilty, but it's fine. I know you're just talking about, just appreciating it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, for me, as far as how I feel about this topic that I brought up, I don't think I'm a perfectionist in general, but I have expressed in the past that I do have trouble when I write something, a scene or a new short story. Instead of writing a handful of pages or just the whole first draft, I'll do maybe a page or sometimes less, and then I'll reread and rewrite. And I feel like that can definitely stifle the creative process. And I'm trying to get better with that. And I'm trying to get better with taking risk, appropriate risk. And I know that's also easier said than done. But as I've mentioned multiple times, yeah, it's really difficult for me. I do suffer from chronic anxiety, which can have me second guessing everything, essentially turning everything into a risk. And although it's difficult, I really do feel like if you just try, you might find that these risks are easier to tackle than previously imagined. For example, I was nervous to join this group to do this podcast, and look what happened. Look what's happening. I'm forever grateful for that risk that I took this past summer.
So are we.
And I'm hopeful that everyone.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. I'm hopeful that everyone can try and take more risk. And listener, I hope that you can take risk. And always remember, please, Isolde is always telling us this. It's okay to not be good at something. It's okay to suck at first. And also, please, listener, it's never too late.
Yay! I just wanted to say that. That was awesome, Sergio.
Thank you. You're awesome. You're all awesome. And before we move on, I would like to know more. I would like to hear more from you, listener, if that's okay. Ms. Cameron asked a question. So I would like, if you can give us some feedback, please let us know how we're doing, but also just let us know how the process has been going for you. And if you feel like it's actually affecting your daily life and your art. So if you can, please, all our information, our social information is in the description. You can get back to any of us, leave us a comment, and let us know, what would you do if you didn't have to do it perfectly? That's one of the questions she asked, and it's I think it's a fun one to try and tackle and answer. So again, thank you so much for listening, and please let us know how we're doing, and let us know, more importantly, how you're doing. So moving on to the next topic we're going to speak about for a bit is the jealousy map. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Ms. Cameron says that her jealousy was a mask for her fear of doing something she really wanted to, but was not yet brave enough to take action. She gives an example of being a harsh critic of playwrights until she actually wrote her own play. And she says that jealousy is always a mask for fear. So what I want to know is if you agree. Do you feel that jealousy produces tunnel vision and narrows our ability to see things in perspective? Have you ever been someone's crazy maker? Have you blocked another artist that you were jealous of? And finally, just how did you feel about this jealousy map exercise overall? Isolde, would you mind starting?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I would. In fact, no. Absolutely. Sure. Of course, I have been jealous. Absolutely. I have been fiercely jealous of people who I thought had different or better opportunities than I have. And I had to get over myself, right? There were times when applying to college out of high school, I couldn't get the financial aid I needed to get in order to go to school, in part because my father was a millionaire, but he was an asshole and refused to pay for college. So I saw other people getting scholarships and getting grants, and because of who he was, I felt fiercely jealous of those people because I knew I was going to have to work 3 jobs. Oh well, get over yourself, go get a job. That was what I ended up having to do. But the other part of it is jealousy for me is more, it's a reflection of me than it is a reflection on anybody else's anything, right? If I want something someone else has, taking it from them is a hollow victory. So that's never what I focus on now. What I focus on is, what can I do? What can my version of this be? And that's how I deal with, and I don't even look at it as jealousy. I look at it as sort of wistfulness, like, oh, look at this really cool thing this person did. And I kind of go, wow, that's amazing. Good for them. And what can I do? And immediately I've sort of trained myself to go to that place of, what is my contribution here? What can I do to make the world a better place in this way? It doesn't have to be, and it can't be the same as this other person did. My job is to be present and accounted for and try to do it from my perspective, tell my story in whatever, whether I'm creating an art piece or painting or I don't know, music or writing a book or whatever. It's got to be from my perspective. So that's part of where jealousy has sort of gone for me, because it's pretty easy to get pissed at someone else's accomplishment, but it's absolutely not a positive gain, if you will, because you've just spent a lot of energy being pissed when you could have taken that very energy and used it to improve something else, to create something, to make the world better, to help someone else feel better, to whatever. You could have used that energy in a positive way that would have lifted up and elevated the whole world. And instead, you used it to be pissed at someone doing something you hadn't thought of. You know, like this happens a lot. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this. He's like, yeah, I hear from people all the time, you know, that person who had that idea for Uber? Well, I had that idea 15 years ago. And Vaynerchuk is like, well, why didn't you do it? But, right? So that's the thing. It's like, wait a minute. If you have the idea, run with it. If somebody else comes out with it first, you're going to have to take the lumps and go, okay, they did it first. I'm going to go reach into my well of inspiration and come up with something else. And that's how I look at all of that stuff now, is sort of, my job is to be aware and present for my inspiration, and comparing myself to anybody else's anything it's a fool's game, and not in the positive Shakespearean fool version, but just like I would be an idiot to compare myself to anyone else's accomplishment, because all that's doing is wasting energy that I could invest in something much more positive and hopefully creative and affirming. So that's how I feel about it. Alan, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Well, thanks for making me aware of this exercise that I totally skipped over. First off, no, I didn't read it, and I was like, "Oh, I'll get back to that." And I never did. I was like, "What?" But I mean, you make great points, Isolde, that it's not necessarily the most fruitful activity, and I think when you're around people who are doing stuff and you're not doing stuff, it definitely puts you in a position of like, well, why aren't I doing stuff? And when I was, again, in the improv world, you would see people get opportunities that you didn't. You would see people be invited to do stuff. It always made you feel like, well, what's and I was doing a lot of stuff too. I was creating opportunities for people, and I was making shows and doing my own shows, and I had a lot of opportunities, and then I would always feel left out when I wasn't invited to do more, and I was probably overstressed. So I don't know why I needed that. I was thinking like I should have just been like super supportive of the people who were getting those opportunities. but I think it felt to me a little bit more like not being in the in crowd or something like that, being uh anyway, poor me. Excluded, yeah. Poor me, sorry, so sorry. But what I realize now is when I have jealousy of people now, it's more like it's pointing me towards what I want in my life or what I want to be doing, and it's letting me know like, hey, this is somewhere you want to focus, and this is a person that has done it. So and now I'm thinking, oh, so that's a sort of like a marker of like, let's find out how that person did it. Let's see what their trail of progress was. And I think that's the most important thing we can do is like support those people, because everyone's one step away from the next thing that they really need to do to get to the next step, to the next step, to the next step, right? Everyone's in a journey, and sometimes you see like, oh, this person has they're on a house team, they must have it all. That person pays to go to rehearsals, to get a coach, and has teammates that argue every rehearsal about what they're going to do and don't do whatever it is, like, and then somebody else is doing something better. But I think we just need to be like, yeah, everyone can use that support, so it's better to offer support than to look at them with jealousy, or to be like, that person doesn't deserve it. It doesn't matter what that person deserves. That person has it. Is there, like in this moment, right? Like this person has achieved something. And I'm not just talking about like generational wealth, but I'm just talking about like some artistic endeavor or something like that. And they've made this moment. And so like, how did they get there? And what can I do to do that? And lately I've been feeling like, oh, I should be like highlighting other people that I like, that I'm excited by. And it always feels weird to me, but I've been trying to be more proactive about that and celebrate the people that I'm inspired by. And if I haven't celebrated you guys, I will somewhere. If you're listening to this and you're like, why he never shares my stuff? Well, I probably will. I'm just been shy. Don't be jealous of the other people who I have shared stuff. Just be excited for them. All right. Soapbox. I don't know. Jealousy is a weird emotion and a weird thing to deal with, but that's how I'm looking at it in this moment. And it's an evolving endeavor. Megan, how do you feel about jealousy? Are you jealous of how long I took? Go for it.
Always. I'm always jealous of that. No, seriously. I this was a really thought-provoking exercise for me too, because when I did the jealousy map, and this was something I had never really thought about before in this context, but all of the things I actually wrote down drew a direct line to basically the things that I really want in life. So I do think that when that emotion comes up, I think in the future, I'll be more likely to just, instead of like stewing in that really intense feeling when it comes up, it will be easier for me to just think, well, what does this say about me? Like what lack do I have right now that I could find some other way to meet? Like I think Isolde said, like how can I create something that looks like this? Or she didn't say, she said it far more eloquently than me, but I was thinking about that when you said that, Isolde.
Awesome.
Yeah, like what could I create in my life that would speak to the need that this jealousy is displaying, kind of. And I think that even comes from, I think that can even speak to how when someone does get an opportunity that you don't get, like I think for me sometimes that feeling really comes down to a fear, really, that maybe no matter how hard I work, I won't get to the same place. And so what I found was a really useful counter exercise to that idea is maybe I don't necessarily need to get to the exact place that they're in, maybe I could create something else that's equally good, that really is better suited to my gifts and talents. Maybe I don't necessarily have to be less ambitious than that person, but I can create something in my own image rather than just like pinning all of my hopes on like the one specific thing that this other person has that I don't have, whether that's an opportunity or just a beautiful piece of art.
Do you mind if I say something real quick?
Oh yeah,
Is that
sure.
okay?
Of course.
Okay, so I think one of the things, listening to you speak, Megan, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. And the reason I was agreeing so strongly in my head to what you were saying is because I really believe that every emotion that we have, whether it's positive, negative, whatever, it's trying to give us information, right? It's trying to tell us something about our own experience of being alive. If you feel hurt, there's a reason you feel hurt. What is that reason? If you feel jealous, there's a reason you feel jealous. What is that reason? If you feel love, same thing, right? So knowing, becoming aware of what you're feeling while you're feeling it, or right after you felt it, I guess, is something that is full of juicy information that can inform who you are and how you're going to live your life and what you're going to create. And so some of what I really wanted to say that I didn't say is that it's part of your own unique human experience.
No, yeah, I completely agree. Thank you, Isolde.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I really like. I really enjoyed earlier. You said that jealousy or being jealous is a reflection of me, and that you're using that as a fuel to be more creative and to just produce or try and produce positive energy instead of negativity. And Alan, I'm sorry that you felt excluded, and I can totally see how that would lead to jealousy. But it's great that you're able to turn that into inspiration. And what I'm hearing from you and Megan as well, it sounds like you're taking this emotion and turning it into a call to action, if that makes sense. And,
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I think that's what Megan said.
Yeah, that's definitely my takeaway. That's awesome. And Megan, I love your counter exercise, which for me essentially turned the jealousy map into an inspiration map, which is great.
Oh man, mic drop moment. That's perfect.
Oh, thank you. No more technical difficulties on my end though, so I'm gonna leave the mic alone. And yeah, I'll share some of my thoughts. So I do feel that jealousy is an awful feeling. It's one of the worst feelings. But I'm happy to say that it's not something I typically feel for my fellow artists. I can't really think of someone who I'm jealous of, to be honest, at this point. There's definitely maybe moments that people have or that people share that I can feel jealous of, but not a whole person. I do like that she says, Miss Cameron, which I feel like is what the whole crew has been talking about. She mentions that we can learn to harness that fierce energy and use it on our own behalf as fuel to take initiative and the proper steps, if you will, towards a more verdant future, as she puts it.
For sure.
And that's definitely my takeaway from what you're saying. So I think that's beautiful that we're all able to, or you're all able to take jealousy and turn it around and make it this really positive thing and motivational thing, which is awesome, because I know that can be hard as an artist to have motivation. So if you can take something, an ugly feeling like jealousy and turn it into something that will get you motivated to work harder or to just have more fun or what have you, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
So before, there's just a few more things I wanted to go over before we close out. But before we do that, I wanted to ask if anyone had anything to say about the archaeology exercise. If not, we can totally move towards my final questions, but I just wasn't sure if anyone else maybe wanted to touch on the archaeology exercise section of the book.
I would love to, actually, because in looking, thank you. In looking at this, because this copy of the book that I'm using is the copy that I originally had in 1997 when I first went through the book and I wrote in the book. And so things that I wrote 25 years ago, 35 years ago, how long is it? A long time ago, 1997. So 25 years ago, this is stuff that is interesting because now, how do I put this? Well, I'll start. She says, complete these phrases. And she goes, as a kid, I missed the chance to, and in the little blank area, I wrote take dance/voice lessons. And then, as a kid, I lacked support from my parents about what I wanted to do creatively. Things like that, right? So here's the thing that, number 3 was as a kid, I could have used, and I put down acting classes. So this was before, that's not true. I actually had taken acting classes a lot in college. But the thing for me was, how do I put this? The thing that kept popping into my mind when I was doing the exercise this time was, it's never too late. It's never too late. It's never too late. So I missed the chance. Yes, I missed the chance to have singing and dancing lessons when I was a kid, no question. But I went ahead and took dance classes as an adult. I'm never going to be a ballerina. That's okay. I would have never wanted to be a ballerina with how much work they have to do. But I got singing classes. I teach people how to sing now. So I went even past getting singing lessons. These choices that were taken away from us when we were kids, we get to make them for ourselves as adults, right? So yes, there are certain things like being a concert violinist. Even though I had lessons, I was never going to be a concert violinist. I was never going to, even if I'd gotten singing lessons, I would never have been a mezzo-soprano at the Met, right? I would have never sung opera at the Met. And that is okay. I like being able to drink caffeine when I want to. Most singers can't who are professional opera singers, right? So these are it's all about priorities. And you can today, now, Google, if you're listening to this and you want to take dance lessons, Google the closest dance studio and go take some dance lessons. Even if you feel really upset and really hurt that you didn't get to do it as a 7-year-old, if you're 27, 37, 57, 87, you can still do it today. So that was, I kind of wanted to say that about this exercise, is that yes, even if you didn't get the chance to, that doesn't mean you don't have the chance to today or tomorrow.
It's never too late.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. Al and Megan, did you have anything that you would like to mention about this archaeology exercise or what Isolde just said?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the first part of the archaeology exercises were where we were going through the things we lacked, things we didn't have. That part of it didn't really tell me anything I didn't know. But when we got to acknowledging the good, that part was really useful for me, because I think when you're dredging up all this potentially negative stuff, especially about the past, it can really help to then turn around and go through the process of reframing things a little bit. Like maybe I didn't have, music lessons when I did have music. Okay, maybe I didn't have art lessons as a child, like the art lessons I wish I had, but that doesn't mean that I don't have the agency now to create that, like Isolde said. And I think it also kind of shone a light on like the areas where I'm doing a lot of work now to take a lot of agency back in terms of reframing like my creative journey, the creative story, and figuring out like what has gotten in my way in the past in terms of me and my ability to be as successful as I want to be as an artist. And just going through this process with all of you, I think has been huge. And that really came out for me. And it was as I was doing the acknowledging the good part, because I think that's huge. I mean, really the greatest gift that, at least for me as an artist, that I could give myself would be to move past those things that have been holding me back, so I can actually step into what success is going to look like for me. I won't even know what that is until I get there. So that's huge.
That sounded very empowering, Megan.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to just piggyback on Megan's joy of like that's what I was looking at, was the sort of like the positive stock of what good we have to build on in the present. Oh, and there's more. I'm just looking at this Because I wrote in the book this time. That's why there was no place for me to do the jealousy exercise in the book, or not unless I got really messy. But the archaeology, I was able to do it right in the book. So I did that one. And yeah, I was just reading it. It was like made me feel good. I was like, well, I don't really love the things that I was lacking. But it's kind of interesting. It's very focused on family and friendships and stuff. And just I'll say this just because I was always upset about it. The first one, as a kid, I missed the chance to go water skiing. And I grew up in Florida, and I was grounded, and I was told that I would have plenty of opportunities to go water skiing. And I did not.
Oh no.
Oh my God, it's heartbreaking.
So I've been like water dragging your pants off behind a boat, but I haven't really been water skiing.
Okay, we have a mission. We're gonna have to get you water skiing, Alan.
I would love it. I would also like to go snow skiing.
Well, we
Yeah.
live near mountains. That can happen. We can do like
You say it, but I've yet to do it.
okay, next winter we'll make sure we do it. I'll be doing the bunny slopes because I'm a lousy skier, but I will go absolutely.
Yes, please.
And then
sign me
I'll
up
be
too.
there.
I did like this, and I don't know why I said this, but I was just trying to write free flow, and I said, as a kid, this is number 7. As a kid, I needed more friendships, and I think because I had such a close family, I relied on them. There's 5 of us, so I relied on them a lot, and I definitely had friends growing up. But then I got to do number 1, and said I have a loyal friend, and I named a few people, and I named my friend Jason from college. He's been one of my best friends, and he sometimes has notes. And my friend Scott from high school, who's always been there and just shows up to be like, hey bud, I love you, I hope you're doing well. you're kicking ass. And I'll be doing nothing. I'll be like, thanks Scott. Thanks so much. But I'll just give them a shout out. And it was nice to look at that and feel like, yeah, I have good stuff, and it was nice to focus on that. So I appreciate that archaeology exercise. Thanks for reminding me, Sergio.
No problem. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just trying to figure out where to go with it. So you
Sure.
host away, my friend.
Can
Thank you. Appreciate
can I jump in one more sec?
Of course.
Is that okay?
I mean,
okay.
it.
All right. So I said, take lessons. If you are still in the middle of gathering your funds, YouTube is your very best friend, right? Please remember that there are so many resources that are completely free for just about any kind of creative endeavor you want to try, that please don't let the lack of funds or pre-funds, I guess, stop you. If you want to try, Google, there's so many people giving away all sorts of really great lessons for free that you can get involved in and you can start, and everything from learning yoga to learning how to write screenplays, it's all out there. Please look for it. And also the library is your very best friend. Going to the library, they have all sorts of amazing resources. So money should not be an impediment to you being on your journey. And I just wanted to bring that up and say that. Sorry, Sergio, please continue.
No need to apologize. And thank you for emphasizing that. Shout out to the library and to YouTube. Definitely a resource for all creatives out there. And also shout out to Jason and Scott for being such great supporters. I know how important that can be, Alan.
Shout out, boys.
To have them there for you. And I'm glad that you felt good after this exercise, Alan. And I've never been snowboarding myself, so I would love to hit the slopes if that's fine. If I don't do skiing, if I get a snowboard.
Oh, I'd love to do snowboarding too. I'd probably be better at that, or maybe worse. I don't know.
Only one way to find out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like you and like Megan as well, the latter half of this exercise was definitely reassuring. The first part bummed me out a bit, asking the questions of what I'm sorry I will never see again, or about what I've lost. But the second set of questions definitely cheered me up. I felt like they were more positive in nature, and they really did put things in perspective, which I believe was her point. So I'm glad that it did the same for everyone else, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so before there's just a couple more things I'd like to talk about. And one of those things is the task. We've talked about them. Alan has mentioned doing the first task. Megan talked about it as well. I believe Isolde as well. And I just wanted to ask if there were any other tasks that maybe anyone would like to mention or talk about.
Well,
Alan.
sure. Yeah, I'll just jump in. Listen, I was, some of these are hard to do last minute, and the collage, and I wanted to do this one. I think I'll try to go back on it. But there's a collage. It's just let's get a stack of at least 10 magazines, and I was like, what are magazines anymore? Do people have magazines, and where am I supposed to find these? And then I probably forgot about it, and then I was like, oh, I'm not getting them in the middle of the night. I was like, what can I do? But I was like, maybe I should just do something on the computer, like maybe like a little image thing. I didn't do that, but I just am kind of interested in doing this a visualization thing. And I think for me, I get a lot of guilt when I'm freely telling you guys that I'm not doing stuff, so that I'm hoping to relieve your guilt. But I sit around going like, I'm not doing this right. I'm not going to have the magical transformation that is promised by The Artist Way and Julia Cameron and everyone who's ever done it before, and talk about how great it is. And there was this, for some reason, there's just like a class that everyone took, like a commercial acting class. And I'm not going to say their names in this moment, because it's what I don't know when I should and when I shouldn't. So in this moment, I'm not going to say it, but I took this class and they were very good. And then everyone was getting jobs, and I never got a single job from this thing. And it may be my fault, but sometimes I fear that I'm not doing enough stuff here to get my the transformation I've been promised. But I'm trying to let go and just be like, I am changing and I am doing what I can, and this book will be back for me to do it again. And Isolde, you're a great model to be like, I've done this 3 times and you're still getting stuff out of it, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that's about this task, but I want to say one other thing, and this maybe I'll say is my secret space or whatever. I felt like I had to come up with something, but you mentioned finding everything on YouTube, Isolde, and I've had a weird relationship with TikTok because I'm like, what is this place? And I'm just wasting time. And I find really interesting things, and I'm letting myself like things and collect little videos that I like. And that's been kind of normally I'm like, don't get attached. This is just a frivolous thing. But I'm just like, let me enjoy this stuff. And there was a music one, and this woman said, like, put on your headphones. And so I got these headphones that Elise is letting me borrow, and they're super good. And I went and grabbed them, and I started listening, and it's called 8D Sound. Have you heard of this? 8D?
No.
Sound?
No.
So it's like an auditorial, like a museum in your head, and you put on the speakers, and then the music is on the right side, it's on the left side, it's far away, it's close. And they're playing, and they're messing with like songs that are, well-known songs and new stuff. And it was just such like I was just like, whoa, I think I like this, but it could be too much at some points. But for the moment, I was like, really cool. And then I followed this woman, and then I found her Spotify link so I could listen to more of that stuff. And I was just like listening to the music while I was actually going to try to read Stray Dogs while listening to it, but the light was wrong. So I just did something else, played on my iPad. But that was really cool. And I think I credit this journey with getting me open to more exploration than I have been previously. So
That's really great to hear. And I'm sorry, I just want to shout out Stray Dogs one more time. I highly
Stray
recommend it.
Dogs.
Listener, if you ever thought about getting into comics and maybe superheroes wasn't your thing, check out Stray Dogs. Megan, were there any tasks that stood out for you this week? Or would you like to comment on anything that Alan and Isolde said? or
Yeah,
just Alan?
definitely. I think that Alan, you are not the only one who has had like anxiety around the idea that, oh gosh, am I doing enough of the work of the artist way to get the transformation I'm supposed to have? Like
Mhm.
I mean, I have that thought every single week. So you're
Yeah.
I relate as
um,
well.
but also the sacred space one to me going into the bookstore, that was the sacred space. It was so like it was like this hush just came over the universe when I went into the bookstore. I've missed it so much, and just the experience of being in there for a while and just being able to do my own thing with the some of my favorite things in the world, which are books, was really, really amazing. And also, I would say that I really like the idea of the collage, but for me, like I don't really keep paper magazines around. What I did do is I started putting together a Pinterest board, which is
Yes.
so that was useful for me in as an alternative to just having physical evidence of it. And yeah, so I kind of had a interesting relationship with the task this week. Let's see, who hasn't gone yet? Anybody else have anything they'd like to
Isolde.
talk about? Azilda.
Me. Yeah. Wow. This is a tough one. The sacred space for me, I'm of the belief that sacred space is anywhere you decide is sacred space. So I can have sacred space sitting in the middle of Port Authority. I can have sacred space going to, the labyrinth at Chartres. I can have sacred space anywhere. It's what I decide is sacred space. There's a movie with Gabriel Byrne and Patricia Arquette called Stigmata, which was marketed as a horror film or whatever, and it's not. It's a deep, intellectual, intelligent thriller, and a lot of what the whole point of the book is that there is this that somebody's saying that they found sort of the last lost scroll of Jesus or whatever, and it was found in this vase in a cave in Israel, blah blah blah, whatever. Anyway, there's this beautiful thing that this last psalm is supposed to say, and it says, "The kingdom of God is inside you and all around you, not in buildings of wood and stone. Lift a stone and you will find me." I forget what the last part is, something, and I'm there. But the whole point of like the kingdom of God is inside you and all around you, not in buildings of wood and stone, just resonated with me. I think sacred space can be anywhere. So whenever I hear her talk about sacred space, I'm like, it can be my little altar that I have to meditate near. It can be my bed. It can be sitting on my front porch. It can be paying to go to the top of the Empire State Building. Anywhere can be sacred space. So that is sort of my takeaway, is I can get into that place of feeling like I am in awe of where I am, because I am in awe of most places. So there's that. As far as the other ones, the movies, I have a few perfect movies in my mind, and because I don't follow rules well, I listed more than 5. Star Wars, Princess Bride, The Mirror Has Two Faces, When Harry Met Sally, Empire Strikes Back, and Hugo. And I could list African Queen and Maltese Falcon and all of the, I have tons of Dial M for Murder, I think, is a perfect movie. Tons of movies. What they have in common, I think, is that they are made with an eye to how the audience will receive them. So it's not just I'm telling you a story and you're gonna like it. It's more, I am very interested in having the elements of these stories be something that you find moving on the deepest and the most profound levels. And each of these movies, to me, does that. It moves me in a profound, I would say, primal way, and that's what they all have in common. So there's my thought. I think that was it. Sergio, what about you? Any of these stand out for you?
Yeah, but I wanted to say that it really sounds like just you yourself is the true sacred place. Your true sacred place is just you, and that's really wonderful to hear, that you're able to be your own mobile sacred place that you can just take anywhere, right? Because it's just you.
Yeah,
I love that.
I have never thought of it in quite that way, but yeah, that's lovely. Thank you for saying that.
That's awesome.
No, that's really amazing. And yeah, so there's a few tasks. I did all the tasks this week actually.
Yeah.
I typically try to do at least over half or like 70% of them, but this week I did all of them, which was nice. And there's a few that I'll talk about. I'll talk about the collage because a few of you tried that. I love that Megan was able to do her collage through Pinterest, which is another accessible thing, another resource, just in case you don't have physical media or papers to be able to do this. So listener, if you're listening and you're wondering, I couldn't do this because I didn't have any magazines.
Okay, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
Or Alan. Yeah, just try Pinterest or something like that. I did make a collage. So I have a bunch of old comic shop newspapers, which are
Cool.
these, I think, I'm not sure, they might be monthly or bi-weekly, just newspapers that the shops give out for free. And have so many of them from over the years. And, I would never rip up a comic book, but newspapers, I felt like I can do that. So yeah, I made a collage. I tried to do it in 20 minutes or less. And can I just say that it was awful? It was not the best collage. It was just Harley Quinn.
I'm sure it
and
was
Joker.
beautiful.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. Speaking of appreciating, it really did make me appreciate artists out there who are able to compile these images and really create these beautiful collages, which is amazing. So shout out to them. And the other task I wanted to talk about was task number 2. So I collect a lot, as you probably already know or surmised. And not just comic books. I collect a lot more than that. I also love to collect vinyl records. It's one of my favorite things. I'm a musician myself, and music is a big part of my life. So I listened to a vinyl record. I listened to one of my favorites, which is the Supremes A Go-Go, the 9th album from the Supremes. One of my favorite albums. It's so catchy. I can't help but dance every time it comes on. And yeah, I listened to both sides. I didn't just, she asked to just listen to one side. I listened to both, and it was a really wonderful experience.
That's cool.
Thank
And
you.
it's interesting, when she wrote the book, vinyl was big, and then it went away. So we would have listened to the whole CD or the whole MP3 album, and now vinyl is made sort of, it's had a rebirth, and so now you could very easily listen to both sides of an album. I think that's really interesting. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah. That's really great. And I'd love to know, listener, do you collect vinyl? What's your favorite record? And also, do you take mini artist dates? Because I feel like when I listened to this record, that was kind of like a mini artist date. And that just made me feel like I'm always taking mini artist dates. So I'd love to know from you, listener, if that's something that you think you're doing, and if vinyl is something that you might be interested in. So thank you so much, everyone. I just have one final thing to talk about or to ask, if that's okay, before we close out this week's episode.
Of course.
Yeah.
And what I just wanted to ask is if we can all share what we're working on recently. Are there any projects that you're working on at the moment? And if you feel like this process has been helpful in that endeavor, even if it isn't a creative effort, do you feel like the Artist Way is being helpful or affecting that? And also, yeah, just let us know what you're working on. Megan, would you like to start us off, if that's okay?
I'm sorry. I think I was having a blip in my internet. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I just wanted to know what you were working on recently, if there's any projects that you're working on that you'd like to share with us. And also let us know if you feel that the Artist Way has helped in that endeavor or effort.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I'm working right now on rough drafting my novel, and I'm also working on writing a poem every day, and just sort of honing that skill and just using it to get more in touch with my creativity. And it has definitely changed how I'm approaching both of those projects, because it's not just, I'm sort of breaking out of the mindset I was stuck in, where I really was still treating creativity as if I had to wait for it to come to me. Even though I was still sitting down every day and working, I still felt like, well, some days I'm inspired and some days I'm not. And I can sit here and make myself work, but it's going to be a struggle. And I think now when I'm struggling, I'm more likely to ask questions like, well, how, in what way am I making this more difficult than it has to be? You know, like how, in what way am I getting in my own way? Because the block always comes from me, just like the inspiration comes from me. And so that's been huge for me, definitely.
That's really awesome. I wanted to say that your poetry is wonderful. Honestly.
Thank you, Sergio.
So that's really great that you're doing that. And also I've heard, or we've all heard part of your novel, and I cannot wait to hear the rest.
You will one day, I promise.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yay.
Alan, is there can you please let us know what you're working on and if the Artist Way has been helpful in that regard?
Yeah, well, I think I probably mentioned that I'm writing a pilot once or twice. And I'm super excited to be working on it. And I think I mean, it helped to do this writer's group with you guys, of course. And then this is, I think I've had a push from starting the Artist Way and feeling like it's time to get some stuff down. And I guess my relationship to the work has changed a little bit, and that when I sit down, I'm interested in what I'm worked on, what I have done, and what I am going to do. And I haven't created a bunch of other projects, necessarily other writing things, which is I've done in the past. I've been like, well, this is not what I want to write. I'll write something different now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been nice to have that focus and that energy. It's still hard for me to write. It's still hard for me to sit down and do that stuff, but I feel like it's getting easier. And I'm not like I've taken an open approach to it, where I feel like I just want to create, and then sort it out later. Like, I'm not trying to be perfect with it, and I'm not trying to be super precious. And I know that I can go back. That's and right. if it has an error of something, there's one scene that my writing partner was just like, it's just not funny like the other ones. And that's killing me. So I'm trying to write that scene out of the scene because I got one bad note. But yeah, it's been good. I feel like I've had a greater sense of self from doing the Artist Way, and feeling a little more confident in what I'm doing creatively, and feeling like it's the right place to be. Isolde?
That's great.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry, Isolde. Before, I just wanted to say, Alan, that's great. You should feel confident. As someone who is also pursuing screenwriting, it is really great to hear your work and your process, and it's really wonderful. So you should feel confident. And I'm glad that you're, of course, no problem. Thank you. And I'm really glad to hear that you're making it a point to focus on this pilot, as opposed to drifting off into other projects or other distractions, because that's something that I have trouble with too. So it's really nice to hear that the Artist Way is helping you in that regard.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, there's definitely other ideas popping up and things I want to work on, but it hasn't
like fairy dust, right?
Like fairy dust, absolutely. Fairy dust.
That's awesome. Isolde, I'm sorry, Alan, was there anything else you'd like to share?
No. I'm good.
Isolde, can you please let us know what you're working on and if the Artist Way is helping out?
Oh, wow. Yeah, sure. I'm working on a bunch of things. And of course, Overheard has become a play due to it coming out in Morning Pages, that it needed to be a play instead of a coffee table book, which was a surprise to me. But now that I'm in it, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I didn't think of this years ago. And it took, really dedicating to the Morning Pages and really exploring some of these topics and issues in the book to make me go, duh, I can't believe I didn't think of that. But now that I've thought of it, it's not going away. I'm also working on my book called The Mindful Creative, which is a working title, but it really is how to develop a lifelong mindfulness practice through the lens of creativity, so that if you want to be creative and mindful together, that's what this book is going to teach you how to do. And I've been procrastinating on it like crazy for like the last year and a half. And during these last few weeks, it's been sitting on my head, and I've been sort of dividing my time between it, Overheard, and the last book that I'm currently working on is the book about being the partner or the spouse of someone with ADD, and what you need to do to take care of yourself in that in the process of being in a relationship with someone who's got ADD. Not necessarily a parental relationship, although that can be part of it, but more like your partner's got ADD, and that means you have extra work to do. And so I've let the morning pages, what I'm letting them do for me right now, because we're going through this book, is sort of to guide me in the things that I need to remember that I want to talk about in these books. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is that as part of this push of doing artist states and doing morning pages, what it has done for me is it's freed me up to start thinking, and I'll not call her out, but I'll shout out Tamsin Webster. Her book, Find Your Red Thread, is so outrageously wonderful because she says it, the first sentence or second sentence of the book, tell your story in such a way that other people need to hear it. And I'm like, yes, that's so simple. But now that I've heard it, everything I'm doing is being reinforced by the morning pages, by my artist states. It's like, what do I need to be doing so that I can communicate the way other people need to hear it? And here's just an interesting thing that has happened as an outcropping of that. I'm pitching myself to media outlets and other podcasts, and I haven't had a single person turn me down.
Excuse me.
That's okay. I haven't had a single person turn me down since I started doing it that way. I've been getting tons of earned media because I've started approaching it that way. And all of this is, how do I put this? I am applying Tamsin Webster's idea through my morning pages to come up with the pitches that I need to come up with in order to get the earned media that I am now getting. So it's this really fascinating focusing tool, but also application tool that I'm just loving having at my disposal, because that's when you've been doing the morning pages as long as I have, it becomes something that you can direct. I want to focus my morning pages on this today, and I direct it, and I've gotten amazing ideas, amazing methods and techniques that I would not have otherwise gotten. So I'm super grateful for that as part of it, even though I do my own version of morning pages. So there you go.
It's old. Yeah. Sorry to jump in. It's old that makes me feel validated in saying that I'm learning to communicate with myself, because it sounds like you have learned to communicate with yourself and drive where you want to go. Driver.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that, Alan. Yeah, I think that's really true. That eventually we all have to sort of realize that the person we most need to shake hands with in this life is ourselves.
That's cool.
That's beautiful. That's really great, Isolde. And I think when you learn to communicate, you have a better sense of connection.
For
right?
sure. For sure. Absolutely.
And I'm so excited for your play and just everything else that you're working on. Listener, if you haven't read, no problem. If you haven't read any of her work, please do yourself a favor and pick up a book or two of hers. She is an amazing artist. And
that's so sweet. Thank you. As are you all. As are you all.
And I'm not just fluffing it here. This is for real on my end. This is how I genuinely feel. Also, I wanted to mention that if there's any task that you need help with, I highly recommend Alan. He's amazing, super smart, vibrant dude. His information will be in the description below if you would like to inquire about his services.
Thank you, Sergio.
Of course, no problem. Thank you so much for sharing. As far as what I have going on, so yeah, I just recently finished a short story that I started a few weeks ago, and I was having trouble finishing it. So I finished the first draft, or first-ish draft, since I did do some rewriting along the way. It's always hard for me to discern, do I call that the first draft then? Is it the second, 1.5? I'm not sure. But it felt good to finish that. And I'm hoping to compile a bunch of short stories and release a book.
Yay!
Yes, thank you. I'm halfway there. And yeah, I'm gonna keep working on that. I also finished my first screenplay this past summer, and I'm on the third draft of that. I haven't looked at it in a while. I let a couple friends read it for feedback. But yeah, I'm gonna tackle that again. There was a lot of rewriting I had to do, and I was kind of like, oh, so many drafts already to have to go in and do another one. But that's the thing, right? We should try and do those things so that we can finish them. So yeah, I'm working on that. And then also I wanted to mention that I have a YouTube channel, which we've talked about briefly before with a couple friends of mine. It's called the Multiverse Odyssey.
And it's
so
awesome.
far we have, thank you, Isolde. So far we have a series of vlogs that we created going to different places. It's our first time ever editing, producing, making films, making videos, and we're using all original music in every video made by us. So yeah, I appreciate it, listener. If you wanted to check that out, the Multiverse Odyssey, the description will be, the information will be below in the description. We're actually going to start shooting our next video, which is going to be a fun one, a little more experimental and not really a vlog. Yeah, we're going to start shooting that this week, and we're hoping to have it up in a few weeks from now, early March. So yeah, that's what I got going on. And yeah, thank you again so much for everyone for sharing what they're doing this week. What they've been working on. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Before I say my goodbyes, is there anything else that you would like to talk about from this chapter that I might have missed? Alan, Isolde, Megan, anything, or should we close it out?
Not me. I just want to say great job, Sergio. Sorry, Isolde.
Yeah, that's you just got in just a little ahead of me. Go for it, Alan.
Ooh, great job, Sergio. Amazing work today. Thanks for leading us through this. And I want to give a shout out to Julia Cameron, who released another book, Seeking Wisdom. And we listened to a little NPR interview with her today, which was pretty interesting. It's pretty cool that she's still creating. And thank you, Isolde and Megan, for being great as always. And thanks for letting me be here. Thanks, Sergio.
Yeah, definitely. Great job, Sergio. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Alan came in and just ahead of me to say, "Great job, Sergio. This was really cool." Well, again, you're such an amazing listener, and you're able to tease out things that I'm only going to speak for myself, but I'm sure Alan and Megan feel the same way. You're able to tease out things we didn't even know we needed to say, so that's really cool. So thank you so much for taking on the monumental task of corralling certainly me, because you know me, I like to talk. So yeah, I'm going to have all the information for how to get a hold of all of us in the show notes. The Multiverse Odyssey there's going to be a link to that YouTube channel, and also to Alan's, absolutely, and to Alan's TaskRabbit, all the work that he can do for you. Yeah. Go for it.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to give one final thank you. Thank you, Isolde. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Alan, for allowing me the opportunity to host this wonderful, to host an episode of this wonderful series, this amazing podcast. I really do appreciate that. And thank you, listener, for listening. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And please let us know how we're doing. Let us know how you're doing on your streaming platform of choice or your social media platform of choice. Please don't be afraid to talk to us and let us know how this process has been for you. Thank you again so much. Isolde, please take it home.
Yes. So Sergio just said everything that I wanted to say. And yeah, if you're interested in getting in touch, that would be great. If you want to leave a review of the show, I would love to hear on the podcast, on the Apple Podcast app. You can leave a review of the show of an episode. Tell us what you're thinking. We would love to know, because this, it's a vulnerable thing to be an artist, to decide that you are going to make something out of nothing, because that's what creativity is. It's making something out of nothing from your perspective. So if you're doing it, if you've got the courage to start, we are here to cheer you on, just like we're cheering each other on in our process. I am Isolde Trachtenberg on behalf of the Innovative Mindset podcast, along with Alan Fessenden, Megan Vasilis, and Sergio Giovanni, saying thank you so much for being here. If you want to buy me a cup of coffee, support the podcast, I would love it. The link for that is on the show notes too. Until next time, as always, I remind you to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2021. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, remember to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thank you.